Cheers. All right, it is 10 a.m. and I'll call the meeting to order and we will rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks everybody for showing up today on this nice rainy day. We did need the rain, so it was good to see that, but I always like to see people here. At this time, we will start with public forum. Members of the public are invited to speak after being recognized by the chair. Speakers should approach the podium and speak into the microphone. Speakers should state their name and limit comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may not share minutes with other speakers. So I know if a few of you are going to speak that haven't done this, I know Denise, Patrice, you guys are well versed in this, but just so you know, we do keep track, and I will start cutting you off around the 3 minute mark. So we don't have a hook or anything like that, but just so we know. So whoever wants to start, can start. Okay, John?
John DeGray, Royalton Township. I'm here to address the smell and the things, basically the ordinance. Now, you're zoning two. I don't understand why there's a distinction between a 20,000 and smaller and a 20,000 and bigger. I'm trying to read this ordinance and it says that the one we're dealing with, that out at the greenhouses is a 30,000. And in this rule, it says nothing about a 30,000 on this ordinance. So, and I don't understand why there's a distinction. I think all these rules should be applied to everyone. I think there should be any structure that's growing cannabis cannot allow the odor to dissipate outside the property line. Because if they can do it with a enclosed one, the greenhouses are enclosed. Obviously, if you use this ordinance, all these, they're gonna just put greenhouses up. They're never gonna put up an indoor growing facility because they can just do hoop houses, which is closed right to the ground and everything else. The other thing is the screening. There's no reason that if they can put the screening on afterwards, why they can't do it right away. That they should be able to screen the houses because they make the screens. There's nothing wrong with, they've made them for them forever, so they can certainly screen the lights out. The other thing is, same with like the 250 feet. If you're talking on section two, we're under 20,000. But section one, where it's 20,000 square feet or greater, does that actually have to have the 250 feet? Because it doesn't say anything about the 250 feet in that. So I want to, this was wrote for that greenhouse, obviously, because nothing, what he's applying for is the 30,000, as far as I know. The 30,000 would mean he's gonna put up 45,000 square foot of greenhouse because of the canopy. Because of the canopy, these starting plants don't count as a canopy. So I did the math. I figured out that if I were to do this, I'd be putting up about a 45,000 square foot facility. My starter plants would be in here. The ones that are going to be counted are in here. So in the 30,000. So basically it'd be about 45,000 square feet, which would be about 20,000 plants in there. So, and according to this, there's going to be no filtering for the smell. There's going to be no shielding for the lighting. Well, you don't have a plan, we don't know. Is his lights gonna be, the greenhouses before had the lights on a couple months. Is he gonna have the lights on if it's a cloudy day like tonight? Is he gonna have them on till midnight tonight and 6 o'clock in the morning? So, and I live there, so I gotta see this. So, I mean, I feel that you guys should be protecting us just as much as you want to say they can do what they want, but this is our neighborhood and I live there, so I appreciate the time and I thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Anybody else? State your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Joe Reed and I'm from Royalton Township and I'm a pastor. and this is my first time here. I've lived in this community in Pine County for 20 years come August. I think this is about my second time through the doors of the courthouse. So this is a lot that's new to me. There's a lot of process and procedure that I really don't understand. I don't understand everything that's happening. But I do want to speak to the cannabis thing. And I want to come at this just encouraging you guys to consider this from a moral perspective. I know that we're talking about plants that are growing, and I think sometimes there's some confusion that cannabis and corn are roughly similar. They are, after all, plants that come out of the ground. And I just want to encourage you to consider the reality that there is a moral dimension to this. There's a reason that marijuana was illegal in our state not too very long ago. I recently was talking to somebody, and I don't think it was anybody in this room, but I'm a pastor. I talk to a lot of people, and they mentioned that the tragedy that their son was in prison because he had been filmed smoking marijuana and blowing the smoke in the face of his 1-year-old child. Now, just the other day, my 2-year-old grandson who lives with us, I put corn on a spoon and did the airplane and stuck it in his mouth. And one of those things is, I think, good and right, and the other is child abuse. And so I just want to encourage you as you process this issue to recognize what we understand, and that is there is a moral dimension to this, and you are responsible for I think that's part of your job is to, you're not the morality police, but when you consider issues like this, I think it's incumbent upon you to consider that there really is a moral dimension to this and to take that in consideration. So thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Come on out. Yep. Go.
Denise Weiss, Royalton. I think what Joe said kind of piggybacks on a few things that had been going through my mind. One is, if we look at the first draft and we look at where the zoning was for this, and it followed Minnesota state guidelines, or the OCM suggested guidelines. I wish they would have put it in law, but they didn't. It also followed the Minnesota Association of Counties, which is the MAC, which we do follow, we do participate in as a county. It wasn't us citizens or anything like that that wrote that first draft. The first draft really did protect residents. It kept it in the larger ones in industrial, commercially zoned areas. It also had equal protection for mitigation and so forth. So I really do and hope that you guys kind of go through and relook at why the first draft was really good. We had gone through the public meeting on that. There were some threats, some pushback, and then we ended up with a really stripped down version that really did not protect residents. Steve, I'm gonna kind of pinpoint you out. In January, you had mentioned you wanted to be on the solid waste committee when you guys were repicking out your committees of redistributing at the beginning of the year. You said you'd been on it for 15 years and it was really important to you because the quote was, I worry what we're going to be leaving our children behind. And that was really important. And it is, it's just as important as anything else. But where we put these larger facilities into residential areas with school bus, what are we leaving our kids? What are we showing our kids? What are we doing with our kids? I know when the coroner was here and Steve, you were so distraught about how people want to put this, drugs into their system, knowing what could maybe be kill them or overdose them. And addictions are really, it's a really strong, powerful thing, and it can make people do things that they normally wouldn't do. So I think that when we kind of piggybacked, I guess, up of what Joe said about morality, but where do we put some of these over 21 types of establishments? We do have them in specific zones for a reason, because sometimes people just aren't old enough to understand what's out there. So I really hope that you guys can pick through and kind of look at it a little bit better. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise.
Come on up.
Billy Head from Chingletown Township. I'm just representing myself. I'm the zoning administrator there, but I'm not here as zoning administrator. I heard just recently that you're thinking of reconsidering or relooking at stuff, and so I thought I'd take this opportunity to say, as a township, we really feel that we're a bedroom community. We've got a lot of residences. We want a lot of residential people. And we specifically have chosen not to have commercial districts and other districts. We want everybody to do whatever they want to do with their property. There's a ton of home businesses, people working out of their home, doing a variety of things, but there's a lot of people that come there in the evening. They want their nighttime. They want to rest there. They want to go to sleep, no disturbance. They want to wake up, drive all the way to the cities, come back home because it's a beautiful place to live. So my only comment to the previously approved ordinance was I really didn't like the setbacks. And you mentioned something about them being restricted from, not restricted, reduced from what the original intent was. And the idea was, I think, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I think you were kind of convinced because the understanding was, well, the townships could make theirs stricter. We don't want to bother to do it. We like relying on the county, frankly. Sure, we can make ordinances, and sure, we have some. But when the county does it for us, it's a win-win because you've got more resources and you've got more ability to check into things than we can. And with our residential stuff, we want the maximum setbacks, not the minimum setbacks. It's not quite as personal as all these Royalton people that are showing up. We don't have anybody asking. But just for the future, when somebody does decide to put one in, and it's close to some of my neighbors, I know their concerns are gonna be, all the same concerns that Royalton has. That's all, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Patrice?
Patrice DeGray, Royalton. John keeps saying I'm addressing way too many issues. So my suggestion is that if you open this up, that you have the new ordinance written by the whole zoning, not a little part of the zoning, and that they go back and they rewatch all of these comments that were made beginning, last May. Just the comment period, other than August 6th was when you had the open meeting for the retail. And I got the names of everybody that spoke, and most of them are here. The one thing Gary had said that he had called the USDA, and it is not agriculture because it's illegal. Kim Crow from Berry Township said that at Kettle River, he remembered the bust, or close to Kettle River, of the big bust that they had. And he wondered how much that cost to clean up, because that was the big thing to him. How much is this bonding going to cover? And is it going to be enough? Because it has to be enough for all of your businesses. Denise kind of said this, I think, when draft 1 was presented to the county by the entire zoning board. It was sent back to be tweaked. The first draft was pretty good. It needed tweaking, I'll agree, but not total rewriting. And we couldn't find any other townships or counties that delineate between size of operations. Everybody has the same rules that are fair and reasonable because they cover all cannabis businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yep.
John McKenzie, Royalton Township. I'm not a public speaker, so you have to bear with me here. I appreciate what you're doing. Take special people. Everybody in their own right is an expert at what they do. Not everybody is an expert at everything. Okay, so when it comes to reading all these rules and ordinances, what the state said, to dissect that all, that's not for everybody to understand clearly. We look to people who have much more authority and knowledge than we do. And so that being said, as a citizen, we need a balance. I mean, we vote people in that we think with their moral character, they'll help us out. And so, there's two sides to every coin. We have a business comes in from the outside. We want people to do business, make money, whatever. But we're giving him the question would be, are we giving him advantage over other people who, even in the future, I'm not necessarily for all this, but you're giving him an advantage over smaller businesses. Well, looking at, governments to protect citizens from one another, if you will, so that we can live in peace and harmony with one another. And there's just a lot going on here. And I think one particular thing was with the smell. If you took an ashtray, someone smoked a cigar in the back, took a couple puffs and put it out, we'd know that we'd be smelling it, right? Or you put an ashtray on the table, you'd be smelling that, right? Well, you go outside today, you can still smell smoke in the air. We know that's going to pass temporarily, right? Eventually that's going to disappear. Agriculture, dairy farms, cattle farm, pigs, they clean out their barns, you smell that for a while, the season is over with. With cannabis, that's my understanding. Again, I don't know all this, but it sounds like to me that grows 24/7, 365. That needs to vent out. That goes in the atmosphere. We're going to be smelling that. So please consider, what's going on here. And consider the smell of it for one thing, and just citizens living in harmony. I mean, it's where it's at. I mean, our area, we don't have zoning or commercial zoning. I mean, is he moving into the area because it's a big advantage for him because he doesn't have to go through extra hoops and loops to actually conduct his business? I know the state's handed it off to us. State's going to control it, rule it, regulate it, but they've told the counties and the townships that they need to adopt these ordinances, consider them. You can't stop it, but you got to allow it. So, so I guess that's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Doug Stanger, Royalton. I'll try to keep this as simple as I can. The first ordinance came out and I thought it was pretty good. It met some disapprovals from some potential growers and it went back to the drawing board. Where my concerns come into place is one of the local growers actually was part of that cannabis ordinance. And I actually found, not everybody knows this, but the city of Harris has a CUP for a cannabis farm down there. And I had a copy of that. And I believe Sue was part of this cannabis committee and I tried to offer that to her. And she could not take that from me and she could not talk to me about that subject at all. But yet you had a potential grower on your committee. So there's some liabilities there, I think. And it was kind of politically and motivated because of December and the changing of commissioners and stuff. And I think the first one maybe was too strict. The second one's too loose. Maybe it should be readdressed and find some common ground in the middle. But that 250 feet structure to structure, that does no help for any residential property. You get a long 10 acres. So I got this potential cannabis grower behind me around my house. It's just a little 75-foot arc. And other than that, a $10 million business could be put in there because I know that because they told that to us at our last meeting. That it's a very profitable business, but it also there's good fits and there's bad fits for it. And that's where the zoning comes into effect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did anybody else for public comment? We got anybody online? Nobody online? Okay, we'll move on to adopt the agenda. Is there any corrections or additions?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dave Minky, County Administrator. If we could add to the consent agenda as the first item on the consent agenda, a tobacco license for Pine City Tobacco. And then number 4 on the regular agenda was, we were going to have Ben De La Forest, who is a field rep for Congressman Stauber. He has been transferred to Washington DC, so he's no longer the local field rep. So if we can take him off the agenda, and then when they do get a local field rep, we'll try to get him or get that person to come and introduce themselves. And then regular agenda item number 6 is additional information, the professional services agreement.
I'll move as amended.
Okay, we got a motion by Ludwig,
I'll second it.
second by Holland. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Approve the minutes of the May 2025 regular board meeting and summary for publication.
I'll move it.
All right, motion by Nelson,
I'll second it.
second by Holland. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Acknowledge the minutes of boards, committees, and correspondence. The Initiative Foundation, May 19, 2025. Thank you letter in the Pine County Surveyor's Report, May 2025.
I'll move that.
Motion by Holland,
Second.
second by Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. And consent agenda. Not too big a one this one.
I'll move consent.
Okay. Motion by Ludwig,
Second.
second by Nelson. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Technology Committee, I just want to say thank you, Matt, for filling in for me. I had a doctor's appointment that day, so I couldn't make it, so. You guys can go.
I'll start out, Matt. if
That's
you
fine.
don't mind. Anyway,
It's your committee.
we had a meeting and I think really it's even though it's not an official start yet of the budget season, departments know that that's on our mind. And so it kind of revolved around what are we gonna do with technology in the future. It's a huge expense for us, but it's a necessary expense. And if we kick the can down the road, prices don't go down. And so we have to be diligent about, we know some facts. We have to pay subscription fees. And as we know, even in our home lives, subscription fees are what companies make their money on. That's how that's what we need to keep pushing forward. And so we have to pay those. We have a schedule set up where we buy new computers on a rotating basis through departments. Could we skip 1 year? I suppose we could, but we've been through that before with other departments where we skipped a year buying equipment or squad cars or something like that. And now instead of being the current year, we have to purchase stuff. Now we got to buy the current year stuff and stuff we should have bought last year. So we have to keep rotating that stuff out. It becomes end of life, and we have some major systems that are end of life. Ryan and his department have been very good at extending that end of life beyond its expectation, beyond what the manufacturer says. But when that stuff crashes, we can't afford to be here without the support of some of that stuff. So it was a good discussion. I don't know that we came to any, big conclusions, did we, Ryan, except that, Ryan is gonna be able to bring a budget forward for 26 that's really, revenue or cost neutral for us. We'd like, of course, we'd like everybody to come in with a budget that was less than it was the year before, but I think if we can stay close to where we were the year before, we'll be all right. Matt, you got any?
I just have a comment. It seems like everything we do is based in technology that to run this place. And it was, what surprised me was the little things like the old landlines and things like that there's a lot of things that can be discussed, but I'm not gonna break out that stuff. No, you summarized everything perfectly, Steve. But the thing is the contracts to keep things going too, the fees, they're just,
Yep.
they're just there.
Yep.
So anyway, I appreciate the way IT is doing the Band-Aid approach on things, some things, and keeping us in the game. That's just amazing to me. I had no idea there was so many parts and stuff you were buying off market to keep stuff going and stuff like that. But anyway, good job. That was my first time in tech and it was interesting.
I think one thing we can expect to see is, we did direct Ryan to come back with some options for us for our phone system is
Yeah.
one of the systems that's end of life, becoming end of life. When is it? Anyway, it's coming up on its end of life. So in this modern era of how we do business, having that phone system that has a desk phone like we've grown up with is probably coming to an end. Because we have other technologies that can do the same thing. We can keep the same number and we transfer it over to a system that we call Teams that we use internally. And so if Patrice is gonna call the zoning department or call Kelly, she calls Kelly's number. Instead of Kelly picking up the old phone, she's probably gonna push a button on her computer and talk to Patrice in the same way she did before. But it's a system that we already have in place, and so we don't have to reinvest $300,000 in a phone system. Not gonna, I don't know. We haven't got to the point where we know exactly what we might have to invest, but it's.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll still be a licensing fee to whatever we do.
Right, right. But those are probably one of the big items that we're gonna be looking at. Questions from anybody?
I have
Yeah.
a question, Mr. Chair. Yep. Okay, so we're normally thinking June, we'd have a legislative update and everything would be finalized. Obviously, that's not happening.
Right.
But in regard to technology, and I've searched through these documents that sort of come out, this is what they're thinking. And I'm having a hard time finding where the SSIS update went to. Is it in, is it out? Because that's gonna have a major impact. So
I think David
Yep,
might,
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Nelson, over the weekend, I did receive an email from Angie Teese from AMC that said that there was 35 million of what I think was the 40 million request for the SSIS modernization that was in the final version of the bill that was being considered. So
thank goodness.
we
Yeah.
think that's good news.
we think. Well, it's gotta make it over the finish line, obviously, but it is frustrating, Roger, that we're in June now and we should be able to be extracting some knowing from the state budget and we're really not yet. But in a year, especially when we know it's gonna be a tough budget year and departments are making a lot of assumptions based on what they think they know. Anyway, that's that.
Okay, well, I just know I missed the meeting, but looking at some of the stuff you guys talked about, it like the Microsoft licensing fees, it wasn't, how many years ago was it when we were just buying license and now they get refused, or we can't do that no more, you gotta subscribe. I remember that was a big deal. Was it 10 already? And uh, yeah, some of the stuff, it just, they get you coming and going, but I think, Ryan really does do a good job, his department weeding through a lot of that, cause I remember even when we did that, there was different tiers and levels of that you do, and of course, they want you to go to the highest one, and we worked through, a lot of that, so, I appreciate what you've been doing and your whole department, so. Anything else on tech committee, no board action? Okay. Move on to Health and Human Services Advisory Committee.
You want to start that one too, Steve, or?
You can. I'll fill in the blank.
Okay. Yeah, so we had a meeting and Becky went over the proposed 2026 budget. And she noted that over since 2021 till present, she's had about 0.5% increase each year. I think she's kind of eating it in reserves most of the time. Anyway, 2026 is, that budget's gonna be different. And, you know, there's staff cost money, there's wages there. And then there's significant changes at the federal level, the funding that's coming in, you know, for SNAP program and medical assistance. And with like, just with the SNAP program, for example, they're gonna do able-bodied person has to be able to look for work or show they're looking for work or whatever. Well, that's gonna take extra staff time to verify, well, are you looking for your job? Are you doing all this and that? It takes away from some of the other stuff. That's just stuff they have to deal with. So that's gonna add to the workload. And then she talked about county burials too. And was a year or two ago where we upped that fee to pay the funeral homes that the burials we provide. Well, anyway, it's $18.50 per burial. And she didn't have the numbers, but I have them on my phone. I'll look it up real quick. She sent out I thought it was pretty interesting.
Is it 24 burials roughly we average
Yeah,
county burials?
yeah, it was just the.
It's not a huge.
Anyway,
budget item, but
but it's, yeah, but it's.
but it's there.
Yeah, I think we're at 19 or something already this year and so it's, you know, it's an expense that they see. And then the big thing that she's not really funding is the new act, the African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. It's putting on us with no funding, but what it's gonna do is it's gonna take the child protection workers that she assigns to the schools now that kind of can grab the cases and work with the families where that kind of stuff is needed with protecting those children. Well, she's gonna have to take them away from the school now to work on the act. And maybe have to add another body. We don't know how that's gonna end up yet. So there's some stuff coming that, just in health and human services and social services and all that, it's not really funding, no funding coming from the state but a mandate put on us, so. And then, public health, I think there's, there an overall decrease of 55,000 in the levy since 2021, but we'll see what happens with that funding that's coming in there. We don't know what's gonna happen there, but they have the opioid dollars, but that's fallen off too and things like that, so.
I think,
I don't know, is there anything you can add?
well, I think the major part of her budget increase is salaries.
Salaries,
And-
like everywhere,
and,
right?
She
But
can't
she's
do much
reimbursed.
about that because
Yeah.
those salaries have been negotiated, so.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to figure out how to deal with that. The problem we have in that all of her divisions is so much of what they do is a mandated service. And if So we have to do that. And then we have, the other part of it is just about every employee is subsidized from 50 to 65% or more.
Yeah.
Some 100% paid for by grants, so that if we said, Becky, you gotta lay off 10% of your workforce, we wouldn't save any money really, because if you lay that person off, then you're not, you can't, of course, get the grant money or the money that comes along. to pay
Yeah, you
that
wouldn't save
person.
100%.
Right, so, it puts us, I think Roger said it quite well the other day, about the fact that they lay these mandates on us, and when they cut funding, they cut funding, but they don't cut the mandate. And so, it's gonna be a difficult, road. That's all I can say, how we're gonna crack that nut.
I think we have to wait until we have numbers in front of us.
Yes. And that's exactly where I'm at.
Yeah, it's like we can
Let's
talk
see.
about.
Let's wait and see
Until we see the numbers, we're not gonna know.
how bad it really is. Maybe it's not as bad as we think. I don't know. Maybe it's worse. That's it for us.
Okay. All right, looks like no action necessary on that. We'll move on to Land Advisory Committee. We met right before the board meeting here. We had a couple things coming up. There's a project the DNR wants to do at the boat landing here in Pine City on the Snake River. That they proposed, the county owns some property there that they need. So we're gonna, we just met, we don't have no action, right?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the action item, if the board is interested, would be to transfer ownership of the historical marker and the pavilion to the city of Pine City to relocate.
Okay, so yeah, part of that is on where they're gonna do that is there's a historical marker there that the county owns, that the city is interested in relocating just across the street by the big Voyager Tower. That they said they would take care of it. We just gotta give it to them essentially. So that is part of it. And then,
Mr. Chair, just to note, the DNR project would require destruction or removal of the historical monument. That's why it's come up at this point.
yeah. Yeah, so,
I
Go ahead.
have a question, and I don't wanna hold up progress, but I think that property has been thought to be owned by the Agricultural Society for about 148 years.
So there's two,
There's two pieces of property. One is a triangle where the city piles snow, and the other one is a small piece of that horseshoe thing where that monument is,
Right,
that
right.
also went along, was part of that. And I'm not on the fair board anymore, but I remember at two different times, the Ag Society, it donated some property to the city. One was for Voyager Village and had an extensive search done of all the land and a new map made. And then about 5 years ago, they had the same thing done by a local law firm, and the city and the Ag Society agreed to who owned that property. And now I understand somebody found a different document that said the county owned some of that land. So I would be, I don't want to stop progress because, but I think that should be, maybe it's already clarified.
well, I'm pretty sure that part is clarified. There was really no,
yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair and Steve, I don't know that there was confusion and Reese had to step out for court. But I know he's looked at it, the ownership. I don't think there's any confusion over the land that the monument sits on. that
Where the
adds-
monument is, but just to the north of the monument, that, to the road.
Yep, and so if the board wanted to take action today, the only action would be to give the historical marker and the pavilion to the city for them to remove. And then in the future, the intent or the discussion at the committee was for the county attorney to look at quitclaim deeds for the county property at the landing and then also north of First Street where the city stores the snow.
Right.
And so that is not it was not proposed that there would be any action today
Okay.
on those.
And both of them, the one to our understanding, the one where the boat landing is, that section of property is ours. There's really not a lot of confusion on that. The one to the north, that where the snow gets piled, the parking lot, that one, there's, I guess we have a very, very good interest in it. If anything, so what part of this is they're gonna research is we would quit claim that to the fair and then quit claim the other one to the DNR is what they're researching. That isn't part of what we're doing as far as today. With this, the DNR is scheduled to start next spring, I think he said, on this project, which with theirs, they demo that historical marker and it'll just be lost, shoved in a dumpster. The city approached us, or Mark approached the city about them relocating it. He wants to put it, he said it won't be that big stone structure, but the plaque, he wants to put like on a deal, he said like a podium kind of thing, over by the, facing the Voyager monument thing there. So with that, I will make a motion to do that, to give the city that historical marker.
And the pavilion.
Oh, and the pavilion, I forgot about that pavilion there. Also, he said they're gonna, relocate that as well.
To Lions Park on Woodpecker Ridge.
Yeah. So like a block kitty corner over.
It's
So-
just 4 posts and a
Yeah. Yeah.
roof.
And he said all they're gonna use is a roof, but
Yeah.
otherwise the project would require us to be demoed anyways, so. So yeah, all right, is that clear?
And I would just, for information, the county attorney did contact the Minnesota Historical Society. They have disclaimed any ownership interest in the historical marker. And then I had contacted the Pine County Historical Society and they support the city moving the plaque to preserve the plaque.
And I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on just that part?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if I understand this, if we don't move it, the DNR will just destroy it.
Yep.
They'll take a historical marker and a pavilion and destroy it.
Yep.
Okay.
That's part of their project.
One other thing
Mhm.
is, the bridge is slated to be, the construction on that to be started next year at some point. We don't know yet when, but can those two projects coincide time-wise so we don't screw up 2 summers of?
I asked that specifically because the bridge is slated to be next fall,
Yeah,
start to work on, or bids let on that. And I asked Mark, I'm like, why doesn't the DNR just wait and do their project at the same time? He goes, because the DNR does what they want to do when they want to do it.
Kind of like our dam project in Willow.
Yep, that's exactly what he said. So, he has tried coordinated with them. And part of how this came up is when they're planning for the bridge project, surveying and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the DNR's reconstruction of this boat landing, which they got a drawing of it, it is gonna be a huge necessity. If you ever been by here, just even last weekend, there was 20 trucks and trailers across the road in that fairground. I mean, and it should, the way they got it proposed, it looks like it'll contain almost everything. your big weekends, I'm sure there'll be overflow, but it looks like a really nice project they're gonna do there, so, and I think it'll be real beneficial to the area, and everything, so, I think that's a good deal, but so we do have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on the historical marker on that pavilion?
Yeah, I do. Who then's paying to move the marker?
City,
City is.
yep. They're essentially taking all responsibility for it.
And this has nothing to do with the other piece of land that, if I
Nope, this motion is just the historical marker in that pavilion.
the other piece of land that the DNR wants the county to give to them for free.
Yep. Okay, any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, same thing. Okay, is there any other discussion on that other property? It'll be coming back, I mean, we'll be talking about on the land.
just the fact that the county ended up with that land because it was given to the, there's in my mind, there's still some gray area, whether or not it was originally, Ag Society land. I think the county surveyor found some information that says it was given to the county when the, Highway 61.
I think, yeah. Reese said there was a condemnation thing that happened then on that piece.
Yeah, but I think there's something else missing, because I think that land, the original site of the Ag Society property started at the railroad and went west.
Hmm.
That's the way I understand it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was before the Highway 61 was
Mhm.
constructed by the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, and Steve, I think that tracks with what Mark had reported as part of the meeting this morning, that it's likely that the Ag Society owned to that corner by the railroad
Yes,
originally.
yes. And then the state got some right of way by condemnation. And then when they gave it back, instead of giving it back to the original owner, they gave it to the county. Is that how it went?
I don't know. He said that it's a confusing mess is what I heard.
It's, but the paperwork the Ag Society has does not indicate that at all.
No.
And that's part of what they're trying to do is just get it cleaned up.
Yeah.
Clean it up.
And
Yeah.
that's what our goal is to just, let's just clean it up, so there's no argument over any of it and, move on. So
Yeah,
then
and-
everybody can do what they need to do.
And Mr. Chair and members of the board, I mean, if there's a question for the county, it's really, is there ownership of land in that location that the county believes has a public purpose for the county? Right?
Right.
Versus there's a public purpose to have it as a boat landing to, improve
And
that
it's-
access.
It's
Yeah.
been.
I think it's pretty easy on the one in the south,
Boat
right? 'Cause
landing.
that's gonna expand that whole access of our parking.
Yeah. And I think it's easy on the other part because the Ag Society, what they do with it, at least then you got a one clear owner. I mean,
I still don't understand that piece up there, but
Well, it's, the Ag Society has owned it since 1860 or 78 or 82 or something,
Mhm.
since the Civil War, basically.
Mhm.
Um,
yeah, so on that piece, what we're really doing is we're just gonna take our ownership out of it,
right.
really, so.
yep. Yep. And I don't remember, was there anybody else in that or was it just the Ag Society? Was there?
There's the Ag Society in the city, and then it,
I think the city ain't part of it because they pay to rent it. I think they found they're not involved with it.
well,
So we may be the
I
last.
think originally.
Yeah, maybe.
And Mr. Chair, I would not read property ownership into their payment for use of the land.
Yeah,
That may
true.
be a
Yeah.
pragmatic
Yeah.
thing on their part because
Yeah.
they need snow storage versus the result of some research as to the underlying ownership interests of the land.
Okay. Well, there'll be more to come on them two chunks of property, but we'll figure it out. All right, so we striked the Ben De La Forest stuff off of there and we'll move on to 5.
Did we vote on that motion?
Yep, it was unanimous.
Okay.
So number 5, probation. Terry's been waiting so patiently.
Waiting piece.
We gave him 18 minutes? No, 20, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Terry Fawcett, Pine County Probation Director. Yeah, I'll try to keep it under an hour.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
So just a little background again, maybe for Commissioner Nelson's benefit. Starting last year, the Department of Corrections now requires every county to do comprehensive plans. And so we did that. The downside of the formal comprehensive plan, which is only due like every 4 years, it's restrictive. You can only, everybody has to have the same template, 25 pages long. To me, it doesn't show our work. The outcomes report, which I'm going to give you, is what shows the work of what we do in our department. And that's the important stuff to me. And I think when you're in my office, I gave you copies of both. So just so you kind of understand a little bit of the difference on that. We still work for the 10th Judicial District as well as Pine County. And we try to develop, provide, and promote effective probation services that contribute to a safer community. I always like to kind of highlight some of the initiatives and committee work and different stuff that my department does because they do a lot more than is required, and very proud of that. Nationally, I was reelected on the APPA, American Probation and Parole Association Board of Directors for the second term. I'm currently running for even a larger position on that executive committee. It's my 4th term on the MACPO, or Minnesota Association of County Probation Officers Executive Board, past president. Myself and my career agent, Amber, were recently out training with the Los Angeles Police Department in a 2-on-1 lateral restraint. And we'll go out and train other MACPO counties in that very soon. And then Amber is also kind of really doing a nice job as a department safety officer. Now she's going out to other counties and providing some training. She's been down to Wabasha and she'll go out to Otter Tail here at the end of the month. So last year we had 2 agents promoted to career agents. So that's kind of the top of our career ladder. So very, very proud of those 2 agents. One of those career agents developed our truancy program. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. Having a 3-phase approach. He's worked really well with Judge Wynn and Sydney from the county attorney's office in developing that. That career agent, as well as one of my senior agents, both obtained their master's degree, which very proud of there. And Devin actually got his master's degree from the University of Cincinnati, which is kind of recognized as being one of the top criminal justice graduate programs in the country. And then Amber's recently been asked by DPS to be a probation liaison and trainer for Ignition Interlock. So a lot of cool stuff that my agents do. I was recently named to the Changing Gates Board of Directors. Talk more about them in a bit. The Juvenile Detentions Alternatives Initiative is looking to award our department $100,000 in a grant for services to collaborate. We sent out kind of RFPs to different community partners, and both Changing Gates and TSA came back with some proposals. I meet again with JDAI on Friday. We'll see how that looks going forward. The huge news of the day is the Office of Restorative Practices has awarded Pine County $244,250 funding for our Youth Restorative Justice Grant, which enables us to expand our services to include the community. A lot of work has been done the last several years on that. Reese wrote the grant. He also wrote into that $29,000 for restitution. So juvenile will now have a restitution fund that we can draw from on this 18-month grant. It'll start August 1st. Reese has done a lot of work behind the scenes, as have I with the legislature. Reese testified you don't know how much work we've done behind the scenes to try to get people to recognize how important restorative practices is and to be awarded that. We didn't think we would get all of it. That is exactly what Reese asked for, and that's what Pine County got. I think on the big grant, which was up to like $500,000 per place, the small grant, $50,000, but out of the big one, there were 55 counties, I think, that applied for it. 31 were awarded, and we were awarded everything that we asked for. So I'll talk nice about Reese because I know he stepped out, but that's a lot of good work by Reese. It helps when your grant writer is very good at technically writing. So I got Devin down being trained as a trainer in core correctional practices right now. So he'll be a statewide trainer in that curriculum. And then Reese and I recently provided restorative justice consultation to the New York court. So proud of that too. Little Pine County gets calls all the time about what we're doing, how we're doing it. And, you know, when New York City's looking at you, you know, it's a pretty good reflection, I think. All right, now to the meat of the stuff here. New offender entries on probation. This last year we had 396. So this is a snapshot that's done every December. So there's a 20% decrease on that. But as you see in the paragraph there, the snapshot does not account any pretrial diversion, truancy, or restorative justice cases of juvenile, petty, or traffic offenders. So that number is higher. You'll see the breakout here. In my department, only 181 gross misdemeanors this last year, 169 misdemeanors, and 46 juvenile cases. Now, this snapshot here is reflective of my department as well as the Department of Corrections. So when you look at 2024, for example, the good news is there was only 2 sex crimes in the county this last year compared to the year before, 27. You look at where most of our work lies, especially in my department, 257 DWIs, 169 drugs, and then 142 assault cases. So that's really kind of what drives most of the work in my department.
Terry?
Yeah.
Real quick question. Are you taking questions now or?
Sure. You're the
so-
chair.
So some of your, if you go back a couple, your total got people on probation is down, but that doesn't necessarily mean your workload is lighter. You guys are doing a lot of work to try to keep them out of that system, right? Is
Yeah.
that what?
That's a great question. So I'll give you an example. Pre-trial is not inclusive in that, and pre-trial is a ton of work for us. And we have some pre-trial slides as we go forward here. Pre-trial has also never been part of the formula that gives us funding for our department. So we have 2 agents that are dedicated basically full-time to supervising the pretrial clients in the county. There are some counties that don't do pretrial work at all. I think that's bad business. I think small counties want to know that, and I know our judges want to know that. And so that's one good example of that. Truancy is another one. Huge number. You'll see our truancy numbers as we go along in the presentation. That's not counted in that number. Restorative justice cases aren't counted in there. And pretrial, and then the petty and traffic offenders. In your packet, not on the PowerPoint, but in your packet, there's also diversion is listed in there. I supervise the diversion cases. They're on up to about 90 days, but those are the petty and traffic offenders. They take up a lot of time, but we do as minimal amount with them as possible because that's what best practices says. Those people, you give them an education program, move them on, and you're fine. But so, yeah, to your point, there's a lot of additional cases in there that aren't counted in that 396.
Okay, thank you.
So in your opinion, I've heard you talk for many years about truancy and the correlation between truancy and ended up in our juvenile justice system. And if we can solve that truancy nut, it's proven true now. We're keeping them out of this bucket over here. So when will the people that release the funding to fund these things get that through their head that we gotta spend more money on the front end of these things? Because that's where the payoff is.
Commissioner, it's almost like you talked to me ahead of time and said you were going to give me this question to make this look good. But That's a great point, and I would say that restorative justice grant that we just received is gonna get us there. There's the change, and I think really the difference maker. Devin, and you'll see what he wrote in the Yeti program, which is our youth early truancy intervention program, which he wrote. And you'll see the data on that. And now Devin has been tasked with, along with Judge Wynn and Sydney from the county attorney's office, is let's do a restorative justice track for those habitual truants. So now the community will have more resources. We'll have community members that can now embrace these habitual truants and work with them more intensively so they don't become part of the system. I think that's where you're going to see the greatest change in the next 18 months is that right there. And that's all credit to Devin. That's what helps when you get guys that work in your department, ladies that work in your department that are much smarter than me, is they're very gifted at trying to create things and trying to do different things. And this board has allowed us to try to do different things. So I think that's coming.
Thanks.
So now the not so great stuff, the corrections fees, right? So the corrections fees are really paying to be on probation, if you will, something the legislature created 20 some years ago. And now they've realized bad idea. They're looking to remove them. I think it's just been kicked down the road a couple years now to 2029. So we'll still be collecting them for several more years. We projected 50,000 in revenue. We weren't close to that this last year, 28,000. We'll project less than that this year. Agents do a really good job of, it's a balance. Agents don't like to hear from me to say, my job as a probation officer isn't to collect money. Problem is departments this money's become a part of our budgets statewide, and what are we gonna do when it goes away in a few years? But there's the other fees that we collect in my department, pretrial fees, ISP, which is our intensive DWI program, class fees, including cognitive skills, our first-time DWI offender program, or second-time DWI offender program, or remote electronic alcohol monitoring program. So we do try to generate fees to kind of offset our budget. Out-of-home placement, I won't get into this too deep because we just went over this a few months ago, but a couple of things I'm proud of. Your average length of placement this last year was 18 days. We had 36 juveniles placed for 60 placements. Those 3 budget busters we talked about before. So 3 kids accounted for 60% of all of our placements. And those kids crossed both my department and into Becky's department. 33 others accounted for an average of only 7 days. So even though we pay for a contract at the juvenile center in Anoka, we're proud of the fact that we only place kids when kids need to be placed. And that's just, there's the graph showing it a different way. Restorative justice program, this is our C5 program. C5 means community collaboration, culture, change, and choices. We've had 131 referrals since we started this in 2016. 111 successful completions, 11 started or referred but did not start the program because of other reasons, and only 9 that were unsuccessful. Recidivism, we'll talk about it more in another slide here, but average length of time to complete 95 days. And 10% recidivism rate after 1 year post-completion. We're very proud of that. So usually the failure rate nationwide is about 60% in programs, and we're operating at 10% failure, 90% success. This is why people call Pine County about what we're doing in our restorative practices program. And of those 9 that recidivated, 6 of them are misdemeanor level offenses. So 35 American Indian clients, 52% person offenses, 60% pre-charge diversion, which I'm proud of, not only for our department, but proud of the county attorney's office. This speaks, I think, very positively of our county attorney, where 60% of all cases that come to us in RJ come pre-charge diversion, meaning if they complete the program successfully, they don't see a judge, they don't see a courtroom, they complete successfully, and the data shows they don't come back into our system. So that's the best solution, or that's the best that we can hope for with kids, is that they do it on the front end and don't come back into the system. And then restitution, we've done a pretty good job in this program of collecting money, and now we'll do even a better job having it part of our grant. Truancy filings in 2024 and 24 official filings. Here's all the referrals. So the youth intervention, truancy, youth education, truancy intervention program, those are all the different schools that have referred this last year. You can see Pine City, for example, went from 7 2 years ago to 152 truancy referrals this last year. So more and more people are believing that if we refer somebody to Yeti, they have a good chance of staying out of the formal truancy system. So you see that percentage on the bottom, 86% of all those that have actually went through Yeti have experienced improved attendance and were not referred to the court system. That's a huge number. Now, the second bullet is where the problem lies. Attendance rate, 23.5%. So that tells me that some of that is parent issue, right? Because parents have to be at these programs too. Parents don't take them. And so we still have a lot of people being referred in the truancy system, a lot of people going through. And if they saw that stat that says, if you actually went to Yeti and learned from that, 86% of you would not come through formal truancy programming. So that's great work by Devin. And there was a couple other caveats to that. One of the youth was referred to truancy court before Yeti, and 2 other cases were dismissed after being petitioned to court. So really good number. Detention risk assessment instrument. So what this is again, if somebody gets arrested, a juvenile gets arrested at their first appearance, this risk assessment is done between my department, the county attorney's office, and they decide whether or not a kid should remain in custody or whether or not they can be released. And you'll see the numbers there, 0 to 10. So if they scored a 0 to 10, this is a better slide here. So 0 to 10 score, 64 were screened, 14 were detained, meaning 22% of a 0 to 10 were actually detained. 11 through 14, so a medium risk client, 36% of them being detained. And then if you scored a 15 plus, only 5 of them were detained at 67%. One of the things that doing a raid does nationally is you're trying to eliminate bias from attorneys, probation officers, judges. Why some kids get released even though they might score a 15 plus. Sometimes they're in danger to themselves. Sometimes they're in danger to other people. So they have to remain in custody. As you see the second paragraph there, it's become common practice to have a juvenile remain in secure detention, the juvenile center, to await availability in the non-secure area. So we know that most of those kids would do fine if they were put in non-secure programming. But we also know that non-secure beds are almost impossible to find in the state. The good part about it is with the bed that we contract for at Anoka, there's 100 beds campus wide where we can move kids around. So, and graduated sanctions. So if a kid reoffends, whatever, while they're on, this is broken down like, what do we recommend as a probation department? And ultimately, what does the court do? Do they follow what we're recommending, for example? And again, this can look at bias as well. So if you look at here, juveniles risk level, we had 60% of the kids this last year were high risk. Violation levels, so 56% of them were serious violation levels. And 80%, meaning 20 of 25 probation officers are recommended in accordance with a response grid. So response grids are things that should be done nationally. They're all laid out by offense level, risk level, and they give you a menu of opportunities or different things that you have available to you locally that you can recommend. And so the agents recommended in alignment with that grid 80% of the time. And the courts and the juvenile system this last year went along 92% of the time with what the agent recommended. So to me, that's a really good number. It says we're kind of on the right mark and the judges trust in what we do. And this is the adult numbers. So again, 38% high risk adult, 60% moderate violation level. We recommended almost 87% in accordance with the response grid. And the sentence that they got in the adult system, 88% of the time was in accordance with the recommendations of the probation department. So again, I think that's a good number. Electronic monitoring. So with juveniles, this is used as a detention alternative. Saved $134,000 in placement costs when we can put a kid on and pay only $6,800 a year to put a kid on GPS monitor. 18 kids spent 480 days on the monitor for an average 27 days. And since its inception in Pine County, we've saved over $2 million in placement costs using electronic monitoring. There's that cost savings. DWI intensive supervision. So this is a difficult program. This would be, I would say, a lot of these people are 3-time DWI offenders. They end up being on with 2 agents are assigned to this program. Amber really does a terrific job. Generally, these people are on for 4 years. A lot of programming, a lot of home visits. You have to do extra home visits to go to this population. A lot of habitual chemical use going on with this population. 22 successful completions since the program has started. Some cases get transferred to other places. And an average of about 35 clients a year on this. So this program takes time. If we were ever to say we don't have the resources to do something, this might be something that unfortunately might have to go because it just takes a lot of resources by agents to do that level of work in the community. And we hope we don't get there. And historically, 89% of those that started this program have not committed a new DWI. So that speaks very highly. And then there's a calculation on how you calculate jail cost savings. It's on the bottom, but saved $343,000 in 2024 and generated over $104,000 in revenue. 20% formal probation violation. Sometimes they do graduated or they do sanction agreements, meaning a probation officer can bring them in their office, have them sign to do something relative to their violation, but not bring them into formal court. So we do that quite a bit in all of our different offenses. 45% were enrolled Ignition Interlock, which is obviously important. And if you follow the legislature, Ignition Interlock is going to be longer now for people based on the new legislation starting in July. Pretrial caseload. So this goes back to this number, Commissioner Moore. We did 322 bail evaluations in 2024. It's equivalent to 23% of an agent's time. So 1/4 of an agent's time is spent just sitting downstairs interviewing a client. That doesn't count going in the field, doesn't count nothing. And the pretrial includes pending felony level offenders and a lot of higher risk offenders. So dangerous caseload to supervise as well. Most of those people go across the street to the department once they're sentenced. 37% were actually placed on conditional release. So even though we interview them, doesn't mean they always get put on conditional release to us. Sometimes they bail out. Sometimes clients don't want nothing to do with being supervised by our department. They'd rather pay more money, go on the street without conditions. We also will do bail evaluations on cases that we might not statutorily be required to do, but we do them anyway because the court wants it. So some good numbers there. Kind of the demographics, 24% American Indians last year, 25% unemployed, 29% problematic chemical use. And then we're starting to measure how many veterans that are on our pretrial supervision. So 9% in the county this last year have come in on pretrial. 32 32% pretrial violation report filed this last year. 31% missed some type of a court hearing. 34% arrested for new charges and 16% tested positive for drug or alcohol use. To be honest with you, I think that number is low. It's usually higher. Adult COG skills program. We run decision points here. It's 7 cases now that's actually going on right now. All the agents rotate through on who runs the groups for clients. This is really where change happens, is when clients are taking a look at their thinking errors. Here's some good data. So from the time it started in 2012, 1% program completion with the same or similar offense, 10% with any new offense, and then 34% if you didn't complete the program, that you had some type of new offense. So that would tell me if you complete the program, you have a 10% chance of failure. If you don't complete the program, you have a 34% chance of failure. LEAD is our first time DWI program. We implemented that in 2015. To date, 494 adults and 6 youth have completed it. That's doing good as well. We have 60 participants in 2023. And I think that's 6 came back in with a new offense. 2024, we had 40 participants last year. Driving with care level 2, so this is usually your second time DWI offender, 91% completion rate. This one here really makes me happy. So if you look back in 2022, no DWIs within 1 year of completion of this program and no new DWIs within 2 years. So again, this is like, I would say this is COG skills for DWI offender population. So it's normed specifically for repeat problematic drinkers that get behind the wheel. And tries to take a look at why do you keep doing that versus staying out of your car. So, and I only have one agent that runs this and she does a heck of a job. The last thing is domestic violence impact panel. Good timing. Reese presents at both LEAD and at the domestic violence impact panel. We do have some hot off the press numbers on that, but Reese asked for him. He's doing a national presentation, and so they'll be included next year. But just kind of to speak on that, 2023 of people that have come in. So these are usually first-time batterers come in. It's an education-only program. We don't charge for it, in part because the bench didn't want us to charge when we started the program about 9 years ago. 2023, 69 participants, 7% recidivated after 2 years. 2021, 11% recidivated after 1 year. And then, so, you know, the numbers are encouraging. And so again, education only programs, LEAD and this, but we're still contending that if you come to some level of education type programming, that we can prevent you from moving further down the system if you're actually willing to go to the program and work at it. And so the sheriff presents at our DWI program as well. And so any questions? Last thing I was going to say here, best practices. We're very proud of historically what's taken place in this department. A lot of that before I came here. And again, 2025, 2 career agents or 1 being trained as a state trainer in core correctional practices. But if you look in 2022, we had 2 staff trained as statewide trainers and carry guides and decision points. And those are trainers statewide. So even though we're Little Pine County and we got our own stuff to do, we have people stepping up saying we need more statewide trainers to deliver these programs and this curriculum. And we have people stepping up wanting to do that. So proud of their efforts. Questions of me?
I have a question. How was your staff? How was your turnover rate? How are you doing with everybody? You know, people sticking around, leaving, high turnover rate? How was
Yeah,
that?
no, I think we've been good. You know, we had a new position that for about 9 years that I was hopeful to get here, and we got that almost a year ago, or somewhere around that time frame. And so, so we do have 1 new agent. She's been here about 7 months. And we had 1 agent leave. But it was more just kind of personal choice, working for Hennepin County now. And so You know, somebody wants to go to a big county, I'm not gonna try to stop them from that, but
Yeah.
that person's actually on my advisory committee though, so I'm proud of the fact that they want to come back and they still live in the community, but, you know, and I have an agent who has a law degree. He's worked for Washington County, he's worked for Dakota County, he's worked for big counties, has a cabin over in Wisconsin, and loves working here. And so we're attracting some people that I didn't think we'd ever attract here before either. So having somebody of 25 years experience with a law degree coming in here and helping out some of my junior agents has been a big victory too.
How many do you have?
I have 8 probation officers. One of them is also, she's a supervisor, part of her workload. And then I have a case aide and a support staff. So I have 10 staff and then me.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I think, some of the numbers like I said in my comments earlier, questions were, it just shows how much work that you've done, your department's done that, I mean, I'll never forget when you said it doesn't, like even with kids or even with adults, sometimes it just doesn't pay to put them in jail. Or I don't mean pay, but it doesn't do them any good to put them there, but you have to spend time with them. You have to work with them, and that's what you guys do, and I think it's really showing, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your comments. Last thing I'll say, and all that Reese is in the thing, when you really, if you don't understand what restorative justice or restorative practices is, please get a hold of me and sit in a meeting. Representative Feist did it as she was writing this bill, and because the naysayers, for example, once you sit in there and you see the level of work that's being done, you will realize these kids work a heck of a lot harder when they're sitting in a group surrounded by elders or surrounded by victims of crime or community members that care, and realize that this is a lot harder than just standing in front of a judge saying, give me 5 conditions of probation. So we can do all that stuff together. And then you have judges like Judge Nguyen, who works really almost exclusively with our juveniles, to have the creativity that she does with us. You have great outcomes, which is why a lot of people have, you know, they usually call Reese and say, hey, do you mind speaking to us, you know, online about what you guys are doing in Pine County? And so I was just on that. Well, there's a monthly regional group that I attend online. It was just yesterday, and they're always very complimentary of our work. And so I want to thank Reese while he's in here, because again, without a prosecutor believing in kids, this doesn't happen. And trust me, it doesn't happen in a lot of other places in the state because some prosecutors don't believe in it. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Terry.
All right, not quite sure if you kept it under 20 minutes, but we'll let you slide since you did such a good job. We'll move on to number 6, leadership, consulting and professional development services, jail. Rob,
So if he didn't keep it under 20, you want me to take and
you
use
don't
that,
have
sir?
you don't even have a deal on yours, so.
All right.
You won't time.
Shame on you. So I'm Rod Williamson. I'm the jail administrator for the sheriff's office, and good morning to Mr. Chair, members of the board. Today I'm going to ask for your support and an approval of to move forward with a partnership with Hegley and Corporation to implement a professional development program that's specifically designed for our jail staff across all levels, including the administration, sergeants, and all of our correctional line staff. As you might know, working within a jail environment presents a unique set of interpersonal and operational challenges. Staff operate in high-stress conditions under constant scrutiny and in tightly structured chain of command. These conditions can put a strain on communications, teamwork, and morale. In addition, our current staffing structure highlights a critical challenge. Out of a total of 33 members, staff members, 22 have less than 3 years of experience. And of those 10 have been here with us less than a year. That represents nearly 70% of our staff operating with limited correctional experience. Yet it's exactly in this environment that strong professional relationships, clear communications, and mutual accountability are not just beneficial, but they're essential. So beginning of the year, I met
Steve Hegley, which I'm going to introduce here in just a minute, and at a conference, and he proposed some ideas, some thought-provoking things. So that to help lead our teams and develop them, our new young staff, plus developing our sergeants as the leaders down in the group, as well as administration. So with that, back in March of 25, we initiated a formal request for proposal process to identify a qualified provider for development services. We received 3 proposals in response, and after thorough review and evaluation of each of these submissions, we did select Hegley Incorporated. Hegley, he specializes in leadership development for all staff within these complex, high-pressure environments, specifically jail settings. The program that he proposes is not a generic training. It's specifically tailored to correctional settings. It'll focus on strengthening cross-level professional relationships, enhancing communication strategies, and reinforcing individual and shared accountability. This initiative will help align our teams, reduce internal frictions, support a healthier, more effective work environment. And in long term, we expect this to contribute to improved staff retention, a better decision-making, and safer, more consistent operation. Before I move on, I want to introduce Steve Hegley that put in a proposal. And I want him to maybe share a little bit about what he has to offer Pine County and specifically the jail, successes that he's had in other jail facilities, and maybe answer a few questions before I move on to the end of it. Steve, can you, if you want to step up?
Hello. Thanks for the opportunity. I got connected with county work with Crow Wing County up in Brainerd about 15 years ago. The county administrator at the time hired me to work with all their department heads, all the typical stuff, which I think all of you would be familiar with at that level. I did with them. At one point with the sheriffs and the attorneys being elected officials, managing those teams is different. And so the administrator at that time had some issues with the sheriff. The sheriff knew he had issues. There was an engagement study done. The sheriff didn't do well. And so he was strongly encouraged to engage with me under the contract that I had with the county. That went very well. And I got steered toward, this is just post-COVID. I got working with the jail, realized that the whole world of jail operations is like nothing I'd ever seen in corporate America or government. I mean, I think that these people, quite frankly, were literally the last people to be allowed to take their masks off for some reason, you know. And I think that that's symbolic of how overlooked the professionals are that do this work. And so what started then was candidly a passion that I have to bring corporate level leadership, communication, relationship building skills to people that just don't have access to that. What we found in Crow Wing, Wright County, I've been working with them for a couple of years also, is better engagement, keeping the right employees. There's some people that just don't belong. There's a shift that's happened in jail leadership. It used to be leadership by fear and intimidation. The generations these days won't tolerate that. It's not good business. And so how do you transform the culture that kind of grew up with that type of leadership skill set, engage the younger generation, as he mentioned, a lot of those, 10 or 13 new or the younger generation, I think we've all heard about. Millennials have a great marketing department, all the unique needs that they have to work for people. So that's what I've been doing over the years. It's been very rewarding for me. And I think when you look at that, I think you talk to a number of the people that I've worked with, they're very appreciative. And I think it changes the way they manage. It increases the confidence, the clarity, the communication among the people in the jail. When you increase that stuff, your compliance goes up. These people are evaluated many times by silent videos. Lay people looking at what they do. When the compliance goes up, the risk to the county and to the sheriff's office goes down, fewer lawsuits and less hassle. So is that good enough? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Steve or maybe for me later? When I finish up?
I could ask right now if I can. We had to help with this a few years ago, we implemented David, it was what was it, the sign-on bonus or a bonus if somebody referred somebody to be hired on?
Correct.
Is
Um,
that gonna go away to
I
help
believe
fund
the
this or how?
sign on or that bonus was a one-time hit.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that has expired.
Yeah,
And
We no longer
no,
have a sign-on bonus. Okay.
correct.
That's good.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Commissioner. You know, the board has taken good action in the past. You know that we went through some struggles for about 3 years or so with staffing. You know, the economy, whether it's the, what was going on out there in the staffing market, we took a hit. And it was really your actions mid-contract that kind of helped put us back in play. And we have now, as a result, many new people down there. So we want to take these people and we want to invest in them and we want to keep them. So we all know turnover costs way more than it is to keep the people that we have. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I thank you for doing that in the past. So any other question? I mean, I'll finish up, maybe you do. So I wanted to talk about the investment in people, which I just did. Total cost for the program, I'll just get right into that piece, is we're looking at a 1-year program. It's $42,000. It's paid out $3,500 a month. We're looking at a 2 6-month program. So I can hit this part of the budget. I feel that we can capture that in the existing jail budget, so no increase there. And then for next year, we would include that in that year's budget. So I asked the board to approve a professional services contract with Hegley Incorporated to provide these professional services and authorize the chair and administrator to sign. Now, any questions? I just wanted to get the money part of the way.
I'd just like to make a comment. I really appreciate the fact that, this is a tough area, and what you've been dealt with essentially the whole time you've been on there is a really, I mean, you guys are in the basement, I mean, just that simple
Keep that
fact
term always.
that you're in the basement, just kind of, it is kind of a loss thing. And Rod always comes to the board and gives us real asks. I mean, usually your asks aren't outrageous or anything like that, but it's stuff that you feel that, hey, we can do things a little out of the box to keep or retain employees or even hire employees. And it's not just money, or it's not just sign-on bonuses. It's a whole package type of deal. And that's what I appreciate about everything, including this. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So we will entertain a motion for this.
I'll move it.
Okay. Colin moves. Do we have a second?
Did you? I didn't second it.
Oh, I thought I heard it. I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
Okay, Ludwig second. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Couple, so in the, monthly fee, I'm assuming it's monthly because of the interactions that take place. So how would you, cause I looked through it, but what sort of schedule are you interacting with the jail staff, or will you be? Is that, or how regular is, I guess, my question?
Great logistical question. So, the way that it's very intensive, at the beginning. So, I will be a very familiar face, getting to know, the sergeants are a key group. Rod and Ryan on the jail ops side, they're doing a lot of, in the business stuff, just operating the jail. The on the business part is really at that sergeant level. So I'll get to know them collectively as a sergeant's group, as well as individually. The same thing with those teams, those frontline people, and we had a meeting in here. There was above average response from that whole frontline group. They were very responsive to that. So I will be interacting with everybody at all levels week to week. Most of that is in person. There will be individual meetings as well as collective meetings. So it's pretty intensive the first bunch of months. And then as time goes on and they start to develop those new skill sets, interacting with each other, then my involvement with them becomes less frequent, but my impact actually becomes greater because they're actually doing things based on their own choices and decisions.
Great.
Does that help that?
Great. What? Just to add to that too, when you said there's a lot of work up front, it really is a lot of data collection, coming and getting to know each individual, each group, each sergeant, and bringing that together and where we need to identify what we need to work on and where. So and you had another?
I had one other question. So when you typically bring in a consultant because you've identified an issue that needs to be addressed. So how would you characterize, would you say that you are being reactive or proactive or what's the mix?
Really good question.
It's a hard one to answer.
It is. To just say, well, I'd love to say I'm just being proactive because we're great down there. But there are some needs and things that we're identifying right now with our young staff, inexperienced staff. And it comes to our sergeants group. That's one thing we have really solid is a solid sergeant group right now. They've got some years of experience, with the exception of one that just newly came into sergeant. She's been here for a number of years. So we have that core, structure, but it's bringing them all together. And then how to lead these new people and, expectations and that. And I get it. That's my job. That's what I do. And I work with people in that too. But that's why we identify a need to bring in a professional in this area too.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very relevant, meaningful question. And it takes courage for somebody like him to bring in somebody like me. Because when I get in here and I ask questions as I've already done, there's some immediate feedback that the team gave me about leadership. So for him to receive that and make the necessary adjustments, that does take, I'm going to say, courage to make those changes because the group's saying, I'd like to be led differently. So I think there is a reactive component of this, which is we all have blind spots. Individually and collectively. So I think that's the reactive part of this. And I give him credit for even entertaining the conversation. But then there's a lot of proactive stuff because I've been out there for the last 30 years and to help them understand, here's what the workforce wants. Here's what a great quality employee looks like. Let's take care of those that are here already, knowing full well that when we take care of the great employees that are here, we'll attract more of the same kind.
Did that answer some of your question?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
I have another one. Monthly costs can decrease in later months of the agreement.
Yes.
Elaborate on that at all? Does it?
I would let Steve handle that.
Yeah, in some cases, depending on how receptive, some of these agreements, don't get scared, but some of them have gone like a couple of years. They've been larger jail operations. There has been a good response up front. And so we will be in constant contact. And if it just becomes where they got a good groove, there's no reason to have the outside facilitator continue. And I don't want to do it because I feel meaningless. And the whole goal is to get this operation to an elevated skill set and level of operation. So that's why I just put that in there saying that I don't want the county or any client of mine to be stuck to a contract just because it's on the contract. So we will assess that as time goes on. There's never been, like Wright County, I just wrapped up with them after 1.5 years. And, we were scheduled for 2 years there and it went, 17 months. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I see you have 2 contacts for Wright County.
What's that?
I see you had 2 contacts here for Wright County on your references.
I believe one was administration and one.
Jail administrator and an
Yeah.
assistant jail. And then for the budget, you said you could absorb this in your budget.
So
You didn't have to cut anything. You didn't.
nope, I'm not cutting anything,
Training or
but
anything.
nope, I'm not cutting our current training. We have currently how we're staffed. I have 2 open full-time spots and I've got 5 part-time spots. So with not filling those, we're not paying those out.
Gotcha.
I'm going to be absorbing it through the lack of filling. Do rest assured, our staffing plan, we can handle that right now. We can't handle 9 full-time openings like we had in the past, but 2, now we're in the driver's seat and we're making good positive change.
Other than probably overtime, you still.
Overtime has gone has gone down. Obviously, when we're fully staffed, we'll have less overtime as well. But that is in the budget. We do have a overtime budget in there, so for that, so.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Rod, you also have an overtime incentive pay that has pretty much been eliminated due to your staffing or
Yeah.
almost been eliminated?
Well, last pay period was a change, because we had quite a few needs for that. But like Mr. Minke said, we have an incentive plan put together for people to pick up shifts in light of being forced. When we were very short-staffed, we were forcing people quite a bit. Now, when we force them, because they have to be here, that really plays on morale and everything. So if we say, hey, here's an extra $50 or 100 here, we have a detailed plan out there. It doesn't change the fact that we forced you, but you got a little something for that and in and above the overtime. And that has a plan that takes care of itself when we become fully staffed. So when we're not fully staffed, we're forcing all the time, we're paying it out of that, but yet it's absorbed into the lack of hiring people because we don't have anyone. Once we're fully staffed, nobody's getting forced, we don't pay it. So it's it kicks in when it needs to and kind of self-funded in a way. Any other questions?
I think it does go to show though that you guys are changing with the workforce, and I liked your comment about that. I've sat in a bunch of statewide meetings and stuff like that, and no offense, but older county commissioners. Because I think you're all older than me yet, but you know, the mentality is I'm gonna sit here and not these guys, but I'm gonna sit here and this is the way we've done it, and this is how we're gonna do it. And if you don't wanna work 9 to 5 or midnight to whatever, and 8 hours a day or 10 or whatever it is, then go find a job somewhere else. Well, good luck, because we need these people, and some of them are very good employees, and some of them are very good people, that it's just, I have 4 kids. Sometimes if I had to, you know, jostle that around, where Rod and his department, he would work around that. I know, you know, and like you said, with the forced overtime, everybody used to be about the dollar. I just want the dollar, I want the dollar. But it's not always about the money. Sometimes it's about the time off and where you got that time off. Yeah, I'll give you, you know, Wednesday off. Well, I don't need Wednesday off. I need Tuesday off or whatever. So I think, you know, working with Rod over the last 10 years, I really appreciate that in a real tough area.
Yeah.
So, and this is just one of them components. So
And thank you. I appreciate that. You recognize that and I being one of the older ones.
Yep.
It was a pill for me to swallow because this is what we do and this is what I expect, right? I've had to come to terms with, you know, hey, people want weekends off in a job that we work weekends 24/7, 365. We've developed a plan. We have a staffing plan and a schedule that gets people every other weekend off. Kind of unheard of in corrections. Not a lot of places are doing it. So, and it's been working. We're gaining a different personnel out of it, but a different employee. So anyways,
Okay.
any other
Well,
questions?
we have a motion, a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to schedule initial budget meetings.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the county board has indicated an interest in moving earlier the beginning of the budget discussion this year. And so in front of you is a proposal that would have a special meeting, July 8th, budget discussion as part of the August 5th regular meeting, and then a special meeting August 12th for any remaining departments for their presentations. And so under this proposal, all of the initial budget requests would be presented by August 12th, and that would give you a solid month and a half before the preliminary levy was required. And so that's about a month ahead of our usual schedule. So if this looked like an okay schedule, we could proceed with that. And if it is agreeable, if you would call that special meeting, the special meetings on the 8th and the 12th.
Okay, do you need a motion and a?
I'll move it.
What time is the
I
one on the 8th?
I would propose 8 o'clock, or excuse me, 9 o'clock, but it's flexible.
I'll, I'll try to work, I do have eye surgery scheduled for the 1st, and I know they do a 1 week follow-up. So we'll figure that out when I get my surgery.
If you have to miss a budget meeting, it'd be terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, as everybody look at that and looks good, we got Matt, you made a motion?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, we got a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? JJ. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Okay. Commissioner updates, Highway 23 Coalition. Either one of you guys make it?
I did not. attend.
No,
Arrowhead counties, I know I don't know,
I didn't get there.
you didn't get there. Joint Radio Advisory Emergency Communications Board.
Oh, yeah. And I've been on that board since it started. And it's actually now called the Emergency Communication Board or something. But it's the same people. But it has gotten, in my opinion, it's gotten so technical that a guy like me is just overwhelmed. I don't know how else to put it. Thank goodness, Scott Grice attends, and he's also on the RAC, which is more the operational end of it. And so he can bring me up to date, thank goodness. But somebody is gonna have to take that over at some point. And when we built the Armor radio system, it was done with money that everybody pays on their cell phone bills, 911 costs. That hasn't changed. The amount of money hasn't changed, but the cost for all this stuff has gone completely through the roof. And our system is statewide is getting older. We're now in 2nd generation, and as we move forward, it's going to get more and more complicated. And so we need to be involved, because it comes down to the point where I think the county has been a little bit isolated from paying the big money to replace consoles and to replace radios. And so it's something that unnerves me, because it's how technology works. It's not a one-time purchase, not like buying a building and 75 years later you got to build a new one. It's like, you think you're buying something for 10 years, and in 5 years, this stuff can't be updated anymore. So we had a meeting. We had to pass some mostly training stuff, but not anything that's gonna have Pine County rate out of check.
All right. Looks like zoning board.
Yep. Well, there was one variance that was on the agenda, and on Pine Lake and on not meeting the 100-foot setback for a garage. They approved the variance. So that went through fine. And then there was a discussion on lots created after 1996, and you remember from our zoning ordinance that you have to have 2 sewer sites.
Yep.
Or a mound or whatever. So it was interesting because Kelly presented and there's the type 1 mound and a type 3 mound system. And they're really the same system. It's just you create your own foot when you don't have a foot with sand, if you don't have the level for the base of it. So that's probably gonna come back, and they're gonna look at that in our ordinance, because the type 3, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency thinks they are experimental. but they've been around for like 30 years and they function fine. So they're really not experimental anymore. So that can be addressed, which will open up a lot of lots that can be built on then. And, you know, Kelly is saying, she says no every day to something, which to me is no to growth too. But if the systems work, why not put them there? So there'll probably be more to come on that. And then, Josh, you asked me to see if we could arrange a meeting, their board with our board, and I did, and they all were yes. It was a great response. They'd be happy. So sometime later this year, Dave is gonna schedule that up.
Perfect. All right, thank you. NLX,
No, didn't go.
Pine County Housing Redevelopment and Economic Development Authority.
I was at a bass fishing tournament.
Okay. Central Minnesota EMS Joint Powers.
I was at that meeting, so it was pretty much our normal meeting. Of course, there's no funding that's decided yet, so they brought back the old, what happens if they don't get the dollars we need? We're good for another year and maybe two with doing the stuff there. They are, saying that the board is, but they were throwing a model out there of the counties supporting it. And if they do an even share for every county that's a member, it would be $15,000 a year for us. And if they do a population-based method to figure out the fee, it would be a $12,329 fee a year. So I just jumped on and said, there's no appetite for that. We tried that once already. And so at some point we could just take care of that ourselves. So, that was pretty much it there.
Okay. Any other meetings anybody went to?
No, but I do have a question. If we meet with the zoning board in a joint morning, I've heard, or I've seen some correspondence about the soil surveys. I'm not sure I understood where it really sits. Maybe somebody could explain where we're at with that. Don't believe it's done to the point where say a septic pumper guy. They tell me if you have a soil survey done in your county, when you're filling out the form, you click on the computer and it's done. Pine County doesn't have the soil maps done, so there's a whole another layer of filling out their yearly application.
I will find out more,
Okay.
Steve.
All right, thank you.
All right. Is there anything other?
We have that negotiation thing.
Yeah, take a peek at your upcoming meetings. We're closing the meeting. Yeah, we'll take just a couple minute recess here and close the meeting. Does someone want to make yeah, we gotta do that now, right?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so at your option, you can close the meeting. I don't have a significant update. I'm looking for feedback on our meeting from a month ago. And then we can talk over some language updates, but I would anticipate a relatively short meeting. And so if you wanted to make a motion to close the meeting and then take a 5-minute recess and reconvene in closed session, that would work.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
All right. We have to read it or that's good enough.
You should.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the board has made a motion to close the meeting pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.03 to consider negotiation strategies and develop, discuss and review labor negotiation proposals pursuant to Minnesota statutes 179A.
Perfect. Any other discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same thing. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and come right back. All right, county board has come out of closed session. With that, we will declare the meeting